Hello there, and welcome to the As Time Film Podcast, where we talk film, TV, games, and all that jazz that there's no tomorrow. This week, we're talking about 2022's Pinocchio. My name is Tom, and as always, I'm joined with my co-host John. How are you this week?
Okay, if you haven't guessed by the title, we sacrificed ourselves to watch this film, and we sat down 1 hour and 54 minutes, which is longer than the original film, and we were not excited for this film.
Yeah, so before we get started, we did talk about the 1940 original Disney one last week. So if you want to hear our thoughts on that, which I have to say is so much better, like I shouldn't even be surprised at this point, but it is so much better than this remake. So you can listen to that before you listen to this one if you want. But yeah,
Yeah.
Pinocchio, briefly explain the plot for those who don't know.
Pinocchio is the 2022 American musical fantasy comedy film. Oh my god, why are they doing the long-winded titles now? Directed by Robert Zemeckis, and that's the description.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, I mean, just like this is a bad film. None of the Disney remakes justify themselves, and they're all like, okay, so we have talked about both Mulans on the podcast before, and we talked about how bad that remake is. This is it might not be as bad, but it's still just terrible. Like,
it,
what did you think?
it was just so bland. It was just nothing at all. It was like an insult to the original film, and I don't know what the direction was in this film. I feel it's just so messy. The performance and everything that was not linking back to the original, it just didn't have that magic at all. And there was some pointless scenes and characters that are not shown in the original. And there was some changes, but they didn't change anything that we wanted to change. Well, we were traumatized, and they just left that traumatic donkey scene. There was nothing worth seeing in this film.
They basically keep everything that was there in the original, but they strip it from all of its personality or its magic. Like you think about the opening of the original film, it's very quaint and cute and sweet. Everything feels handcrafted and loved, and you have all these cuckoo clocks, and everything is just given this shine and just this really like this cuteness. And then in this one, the cuckoo clocks are literally the most insulting thing. They are all like Disney and Pixar characters.
Yeah,
Why? It
I
is
don't.
literally the moment that you see, Woody coming out of the stable on Bullseye, or you see Maleficent and Sleeping Beauty, or Rafiki holding up Simba. It's like, what is even the point?
In the original, it was like very well crafted clocks that was just so it had its own personality, and it was just like very cute and quaint, and it was like reflecting Geppetto's work. But if you're adding Disney characters in this, I don't know, time period, that is the most weirdest thing you can do. Like it's like there's a massive law in the Disney Pixar films, like everything is connected. You got like hidden characters or references to other films in the animations. This is just like that to me. It's like they just decided to add every animation on there showing products. Why? What do
Yeah,
you?
in this opening section, there's just so many odd elements that they add for just no good reason at all. For example, we get this in the opening scene, but that is about it. Instead of Geppetto just making a puppet who is a reflection of him, wanting a son, they very blatantly have him, with a picture of what is presumably his dead son, of which Pinocchio's consciousness is projected onto. And they make just these really weird details that don't need to be there. Like in the original, he's like, "Oh, I'm going to call you Pinocchio." And in this one, he's like, "Ah, you're a boy made out of pine. Pinocchio. Pinocchio." And it's like, you don't need that. Like, what
No.
does that add? It doesn't add a single thing. And I feel like a lot of the elements they add just do nothing. And if anything, make it a lot more complex for no good reason.
Yeah, and the dialogue. Oh my god. The open right. So as the blue fairy came into the house, there was so many pointless dialogues that there was just like adding in exposition. I didn't know why it had to explain everything. But here's the worst part: the blue fairy is only shown in one scene. That's it. She doesn't come back. She doesn't help Pinocchio or any of the sequences like in the original film. Kind of gave that idea of your second chance. But in this, she's there and then she sings.
It's very random, and the Blue Fairy feels like a lot less important to this one. Pinocchio in himself doesn't even really need anybody else. Jiminy is barely there. Like the whole time, Jiminy is separated from Pinocchio. Pinocchio, who the whole kind of like journey that Pinocchio goes through is that he just says yes to everything and is very kind of like easily strung along with things. And that's all part of like his learning. But in this, pretty much like after he does the puppet show with Stromboli, he just has a clear moral compass. He doesn't need a conscience. Like he doesn't like just go away to Pleasure Island because he's like young and impressionable. He's the whole time he's like second guessing and not sure, which completely negates the whole point of his journey throughout the film. They completely changed this whole aspect of his character. I just don't know what like they were thinking. I don't know what they thought they might get from that.
Yeah, and the journey was so abrupt and so out of place. In the original, it was well paced. You know, it had 4 different sections, but then there was weird moments. It just felt like a fever dream to me. I was like watching a horror parody of Pinocchio. To be honest, like the CGI. It was horrifying. It just scared me. I was like, "Oh my god, this is a horror film." But the pointless characters. There's one. I forgot her name.
I know the one you mean, the ballerina, right?
Yes, the
What
ballerina.
why are you here? Is it just so they could like imprison Stromboli?
I thought in the original Stromboli was, shown as this horrible character who kidnapped Pinocchio. But I don't know why they had to do this kick the dog moment, having this ballerina along as well, and she can't go anywhere. I think that's pretty well shown, as he just kidnapped Pinocchio. But no, there's a ballerina.
She's there and she's like, I'm gonna help you escape, Pinocchio. And I was like, okay, so they're just kind of changing the way that he escapes. Fine. But then she doesn't help him escape and then just pops up again later and is like, hey, we did it. We imprisoned Stromboli. And it's like, what? Like, what wisdom have you imparted on Pinocchio not to trust bad guys? He's learned that on his own, you know? Like in the original, like you have Jiminy there the whole time, but this time they just don't want Jiminy. Jiminy, who spends most of the time playing catch up on Pinocchio instead of actually being there to impart wisdom on him. And the same with the Blue Fairy, like what you're saying before, it is in only one scene, and therefore taking out all those times when she was used as a scapegoat, like when Pinocchio's nose is growing, takes away the lessons that Pinocchio is learning. He doesn't really learn a lesson in this one. He, in fact, uses his nose to escape from the prison, which I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong, but don't they do that in Shrek?
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure in Shrek
Oh
1 or
my god,
2,
yeah. I
Pinocchio uses his
remember.
nose so they can escape and get a key or something like
Yeah.
that.
Oh my god.
I mean, obviously Shrek did it better, but still, like, what is the point of that? Like,
I don't
what
know.
are the
I,
characters
I feel like,
learning?
isn't that ruining the character arc?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, because he's not supposed to lie, and he learns from that, from growing the nose. And by the way, the nose thing doesn't come back like in the original. It's just shown in
Yeah,
one scene.
just the same. They just have it for one scene and then it's gone.
Yeah, and the film aims Pinocchio to be unselfish, brave, and trustworthy, or not to lie. And he does so as he tries to get the key. And it's just not really probably explained in that scene. He's like, oh, well done, Pinocchio, you guys out here. But that didn't really prove his worth,
Mm.
really. He was a bit selfish, like you could have saved that woman, but nah.
Yeah, he just leaves and then is immediately whisked along to Pleasure Island. I have to say as well, one thing that I did like that they changed in this one was the idea that at the end, Pinocchio wasn't rewarded by being a real boy. Like, he is a real boy inside. And I thought, hey, I think that's actually quite good. But then, so like literally Jiminy Cricket's like, some of these stories say that he turned into a real boy. Who knows if that's true? But in his heart, he was real. And I was like, you know what? That's a good message. Like, that is genuinely good. And then they show him turn into a real boy. Like, what is even the point of putting that message in there if you're then going to do a complete 180 immediately?
The message was great, but then, as you just said, it just turned into a real boy. I was like, what? Why would you do that? It's just so out of place. And there was like no celebration at all. Like in the original, there was like a huge celebration. He was a proper boy and he was really wholesome. But then in this, it's like, Pinocchio. well done, and just walked
Let's
away.
walk. Let's walk out of this cave. They instead give it this weird moment where Pinocchio thinks that Geppetto's dead. And it's like that's a weirdly bleak way to
I
end
don't
the
know why.
film.
That is so weird because in the original, I thought that was really heartbreaking. That Pinocchio died, and then it was really wholesome when he came back and had a celebration. But then Geppetto died, and it's like, oh no, Geppetto! It's just like that really fake movie death thing. It's just a weird trope now. It's just like, oh no, that character's dead, and then just comes back to life within 5 seconds. Oh no, you're really alive, and then that's the end of the movie.
Like, great. And let's not even like think about Cleo and Figaro, who are just any of their
Oh,
charm and cuteness is stripped away by the CGI. And,
Cleo.
in general, the CGI is fine, but sometimes, like with Figaro, who is so obviously a CGI cat, really distracting.
It's not as wholesome as the original. Just Figaro and Cleo, just cute. But then in this, why is it so out of place? It's just so bizarre. It's just like a fever dream. And they decided in this film to have a subplot with Geppetto finding Pinocchio, which is not shown in the original, but it's just Tom Hanks just looking around trying to find Pinocchio and decides to go into the sea. But we know why he went into the sea to find Pinocchio because he was on Pleasure Island. But
Yes, a
yeah,
seagull told him. Okay, in the original, a seagull is kind of like this messenger for like the blue fairy is what is assumed. In this one, there's just a talking seagull. Sure, okay, that's fine. Why not? Like they just insert this here, and as I predicted last week, the main change in this is that they expand upon Geppetto's journey a bit more. But what I really hate about it is in the original, the ending, Pinocchio and Jiminy go underwater, and you have this really visually interesting scene where they're underwater and they're trying to find the whale. And then, like, them coming out of the whale, like, Geppetto is so broken and desperate inside the whale until he finds Pinocchio, and Pinocchio gives him the courage to come out. Whereas in this one, Pinocchio already finds Geppetto, and then they're swallowed, not by a whale, by some sort of mythical sea creature
I
that
think it was a
has
kaiju.
it probably was. It was this kaiju that has whale-esque features. And it's just like, what does that add?
It had it had
Like
tentacles.
it
And
did. Was it the
I was
Kraken?
so
Maybe.
confused. In the original, Monstro was terrifying itself. It was like a massive, massive whale. But then in this, he's like a kaiju. I was like, am I watching Pacific Rim? I don't know.
I did think that they would kind of beef up some action with it, and they didn't really, but I wouldn't have been surprised. The scene where they go to Pleasure Island and they take this kind of roller coaster. Oh my God, it was such an ugly scene. The
It
CGI was
was.
horrific. It felt like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but in a bad way.
It was actually. And then there's one scene where in this Pleasure Island that they were destroying clocks.
Yes.
I don't know why this was implemented. It's like, oh no, they look like my father's clocks. I don't know, it had to be reinforced because Pleasure Island looked so terrible, well, with the CGI as well, but it
Mm.
was just like this terrible place, like destroying houses, destroying shops. And there was one bit where they were insulting each other. I don't
Yeah.
know.
And it's like the whole point is that these kids, including Pinocchio, are all impressionable, and Pleasure Island is bringing out the worst of them, but they have been like, hoodwinked by this guy. But in this one, they are all for it. They sing a song about it. They sing a song about how good it is. And it's like, what? Like, there are so many instances in this film where they turn it into a musical where it really doesn't need to be. They sing this whole thing where the wagon driver is like stepping on donkeys. And it's just like, what's going on?
I don't know. And there was mystical beasts out of
Oh
nowhere.
my God.
But anyway, in this, it just looks like a very terrifying place. And then the trauma came back. They turned into donkeys. Oh my god.
I must say though, it's nowhere near as bad as the original. The
Yeah,
donkeys, it's nowhere near as traumatic. They don't have the donkeys like talking, like crying out for their mom. Like that's what was scary in the original, but they don't do that
yeah.
here. If
Yeah,
anything, the original is terrifying because it's just people, it's just men kidnapping these donkeys. But in this one, it's weird smoke creatures.
smoke
Like,
creatures.
what?
Ooh,
Why are they
smokers.
what these like ghosts? Like why are they being kidnapped by these like
I don't
nefarious
know.
beings that we never see again?
It's not explained. Disney could have the chance of showing Pinocchio as this brave, unselfish person, as well with Jiminy Cricket, who is his conscience. They stuck to the original and they just ran away from Pleasure Island, not helping any of the donkeys. And then that's
Which
that's
doesn't make
it.
sense. That doesn't make sense for the character they have presented. So far, they have shown us that this in this iteration, Pinocchio already has like very much like a moral compass. So why would he just leave?
And Jiminy Cricket, oh my god! And then okay, I had some high hopes, right? When Jiminy Cricket found some fireworks, I thought, oh, he's
Oh
going to
my God.
distract them
Yeah,
and
that's what I
then
thought.
save them. No, he escaped.
It was the weirdest scene. Pinocchio, he's watching his friend turn into a donkey and he goes, Jiminy, and Jiminy just fires up from a grate. And it's like, what? Why is this even like, I don't understand. I really don't get it. It strips away all the morality and all of the charm and even all of the trauma from the original to the point
Yeah.
where none of it just hits at all. Like, even the beginning, right? The opening
Yes.
shot of the film, you get the Disney logo with the Disney castle and like the fireworks. And I literally said, you know what, this film might be bad, but you can never change the Disney logo. It will always give me nostalgia. And then and then Jiminy enters the frame and starts singing along with the song. Like, what? Like, you really had to go and dismantle every single element to be positive for a second. I do think,
Second.
for a single second, please, I do
Okay.
think that Robert Zemeckis is a good director. We know that he's a good director,
Of
and I do
course he is.
think, and I
He
do
did
think
Back to
that
the Future. Come on, man.
exactly, exactly, and I do think that he frames some of this film really well. There are some times at the beginning, especially, where he will frame Jiminy in the foreground and have things going on in the background, and I think that despite the really like sometimes horrendous CGI, I do think that all the way that he constructs this film is really good. You can see he's taking like things that he did in the Polar Express and his other animated works and kind of applying them here. I do think that he has vision and I think he has visuals that I appreciated, but
Yeah,
that's the only thing that really did it for me in this film.
yeah, I agree. It had some very striking cinematography, like what he did with the framing as well. But nothing really impressed me with the film at all. The soundtrack, okay, the songs itself, it was just so bland. Like it had no emotion. It was like nothing. In the original, did Pinocchio get kicked out of school?
No, they don't. He doesn't get to school. He literally just goes with Honest John immediately,
Yeah, Honest John,
which
I remember that.
well, they literally just add these school scenes where he gets kicked out for not being a real boy, which really doesn't do anything for the film. Like, what does that add? If anything, that tells us that he shouldn't be with society and that he shouldn't be good because society hates him.
Yeah, and it's just so weird. I don't know, man. This film, Depression, we had to sit down and watch extra scenes of Tom Hanks. The performance from Tom Hanks, it was so weird because he just looked so sad every time. He's like, "Oh, Pinocchio.
Oh, I have a son.
Oh wow. Oh, Figaro, what should
Oh,
I call
I
him?
better I better send him to school on his own.
Oh, it's 5 o'clock. Oh, he must be here by 5 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock.
Wow. I mean, I think
Figaro, we need to go
honestly, like, okay, so this weekend is it.
Monstro.
Okay, so obviously this weekend it's D23, right? And
Yeah.
we've had announcements for even more of this kind of stuff, various sequels and prequels, and we had a trailer for the live action Little Mermaid. And I enjoy talking about the Disney live action films because they're bad and I enjoy complaining about them. However, oh my God, they need to stop. Like,
They do. They can't keep getting away with it. It's it's pain. I don't know why they're forcing everyone. Like, hey guys, let's make a live action. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's just like it just feels like they're doing the bare minimum just for money. But this one didn't even release in cinemas. Like, what if like oh, I don't even know. I don't even know, man. But rest assured, we'll continue to cover the live action Disney remakes because goddamn that they are really
We
bad and
won't
fun
find
to talk about.
a good one. We won't find a good one to talk about
Yeah, no
because
way.
there's no way.
Okay,
Okay.
so Pinocchio 2022. What are you gonna give it out of 10?
One.
Fair enough. I'll give it a 2. Thanks everyone for listening. And if you if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more. We did do 1940 Pinocchio last week, which is so much better, even though it is darker than you remember. And you can follow us if you're listening on Spotify. Give us a nice review. Next week, we're going to be doing 3,000 Years of Longing. And the week after that, we're going to be doing Nope, and then Prey, and then Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. We've got some actual really good films coming up.
Oh,
So
thank God.
stay tuned
We
for
don't,
that. I can't wait to do real cinema for once because there's no
but
Marvel
no.
stuff at the moment and there's no franchise stuff. So we just get to do some fun, like real films, and I can't wait. So definitely stay tuned for all of that. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Outtime Film Pod and send us an email with your thoughts and questions. Tell us what you think of Pinocchio and ask us anything, and we will answer it right here on the pod itself if you email us at outtimefilmpod@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening. We talked about Pinocchio. It was a movie, came out in 2022.
I can confirm that yes, it is a movie.
Yes, it's one of the most movies. Yes, there are strings on this film.
Ah, I get it. Like the thing, like the string thing.
Yeah. Like that scene. Yeah, get it because
Yeah, I get it.
Pinocchio. Oh, never mind. Yeah. And yeah, take what you're given.
Give nothing back.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye.